There's also a pair of like boxer shorts over there or something, and I thought about burning those, but why would you be hiking and backpacking in boxer shorts anyway? Please, in the comment section, if you hike in boxer shorts, let me know, but you really shouldn't. We are in South Cumberland State Park, which is about a 2-hour drive from us. We live in a southern suburb of Nashville, and this trip was planned last minute, actually. We originally intended to go to a big South Fork, and I kind of mapped out a loop up there called the Honey Creek Loop, and we've done one loop up in Big South Fork, and that was near Angel Falls Overlook, but ultimately decided to go somewhere else. I actually planned this early this morning. Right now it's about noon. We're just going to do a quick overnight here, and the campsite we're going to is near the Collins West trailhead. That's where we started from, and it's only like it's a half mile, so we're going to do hikes out of the campsite. The campsite's a half mile from the trailhead. We're staying at campsite number 3, which looked really nice, and I have nothing but good things to say about their website. The trip planning process was really easy. Like when you go on, it shows it by section, and then you just hover your mouse over each individual site, and it has a photograph, which is great because even on like Smoky Mountain National Park, a lot of parks out west, they don't have photographs of all the sites like that. So this site should be near an overlook. There's actually a warning on the park's website that says there's been black bear activity in this part. I think it's called Savage Gulf. That there's been black bear activity around here recently. It's wintertime, obviously, but even in the wintertime, I'm sure that there are some black bear activity here. It doesn't get that cold. So we are headed towards the Collins West campsites. There's a handful of campsites over there, and there's another trail that goes this direction.
Well, that's a beautiful fire.
And that was the shortest hike I've ever had in my life to a campsite. This is a pretty nice campsite, as you can see. And let's go over here to the view, take a look at that. And you could see that a little bit from the picture online. That's why I chose this one. Oh, there's the bathrooms. I think that's a bathroom anyway. It showed a little bathroom thing on the map. The good thing is that there's a ton of downed wood around here, and like I said, I brought my Soaky saw, so we should be able to get a pretty good fire going. And the reason that we chose this time of the month or whatever, it hasn't rained for probably 5 days, and we've had multiple days that were just sunny all day, which is somewhat rare this time of the year in Tennessee. And I wanted to be able to get a good fire going, so I wanted to have some dry wood, and I did bring the fat wood though. Yeah, that's stuff that you don't want to see in your campsite. A rule of thumb I've come up with is that the harder the campsite is to get to, generally the better quality of individual you'll find there. So if you find campsites that are like really close to a trailhead, you're far more likely to see stuff like that than you are like in the middle of somewhere, that you had to hike 10 miles to get to, generally speaking. Oh, we just had to move the tent, and I somehow did not notice this tree that's leaning over here. It actually wasn't directly above the tent, but it was close enough to where I didn't really want to have that on my mind when we go to sleep tonight. I mean, it was close enough to where like some of the branches way up there at the top could have possibly hit the tent if it somehow fell slightly at an angle. So obviously always make sure you check for that when you set up your tent. We were talking about something, I was messing with the camera, not paying attention, and then we happened to notice it after we got the tent set up, so we just moved it over here closer to the overlook. Here is the saw I'm using, It's the Silky Gomboy 210, I believe. Yeah, 210. Made pretty quick work of some downed wood over there that is super, super dry. It's pine. It smells really good. I brought these mechanics gloves just to wear as I'm processing wood because I don't want to mess up my wool, my First Light wool gloves. So it comes in this little plastic case. I don't know how much this weighs, I forget. I did know when I bought it. But there's a reason that I actually bought this one instead of the pocket. I think they call it the Pocket Gomboy or something. Gomboy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I felt as though the pocket one was neither fish nor fowl in the sense that it was small enough to where it's great, you know, it's lightweight for backpacking, but not really large enough to process pieces of wood like this, or it would be very difficult to. So in my opinion, if you're gonna make the weight sacrifice and bring something like this, you at least want it to be large enough to be functional. So I mean, it's a trade-off. That's not to say that the pocket one doesn't have its place. These things are cheap enough to where, I mean, you could get several of them and carry them. You know, you carry a larger one on a shorter trip. I mean, on this trip, I could have brought, you know, a woodsman axe and it wouldn't have mattered. It's a half-mile hike, but I would never bring this on any sort of trip where there was a lot of elevation gain, especially, you know, if it was a longer distance multi-day trip. There's no way I would take this. You don't really need one of these to get at least a little fire going, but like I said, a half-mile hike, you know, we're gonna be in camp for a while, so it'd be nice to have a really big fire. So there's really no downside on taking this on this trip. Some pretty decent sized logs down there. We've got some more kindling over here. And there's the fat wood. And a pretty nice fire ring. And again, that's campsite number 3. This. Neither one of us are vegetarians, just happened to be the one that we had. Grab one of these rocks to use, maybe. Oh yeah. How many of you guys think I got that on the first try? A little waterfall down here. And this is a really short hike from the campsites.
If you want better pictures, you could probably go up there. That's really pretty.
So it's not supposed to rain tonight or tomorrow morning, but I wanted to get a little bit of practice setting this up because I've only done it once before in Olympic National Park, and I did it while it was sort of raining. But this is the Z-Packs 8.5 by 10 tarp, obviously in the camo pattern. It's in the ground with MSR groundhog stakes, and I think they're the 7-inch. And I brought 4 of them. They come in a pack of 6. You know, for these conditions, this is more than fine. If it were a little windier, I would probably bring 6. That way you could stake out that middle one back there. And maybe this middle one right here. It's basically a perfect campsite for setting up a tarp. The wind's kind of coming back here, from back here, so I set it up this direction.
Also, I think I would rather just look out onto the campsite so we can see what's this direction as opposed to having our backs to all this area over here just for bears or people or whatever. And the fire's going to be right there. So we got the bear bag over here. I use the PCT method, which I find to be a lot easier. You don't have to worry about tying it around the tree. It's also a much more bear-proof method.
One thing I learned is that sometimes it's better to use a little bit thicker cord for your bear bag, especially if you're going to hang it early on and then be constantly lowering it and raising it, because that ultralight, Z-line cord, whatever it's called, that stuff is super light, but it's really hard to get a hold of. And if you're not careful, if you're not wearing gloves, you'll burn your hand like really easily. And I learned that in Glacier. At Glacier, they make you hang your bag as soon as you get to camp, like before you even hit your tent site or anything. And because of that, you're going to be constantly needing stuff out of it throughout the day. It's not fun to use. And then also, if you use the PCT method like I did, it's kind of hard to hold it with one hand and then tie the loop in there to put the stick in because it's so thin. So in my opinion, using something a little bit thicker than that is probably worth the wait, but it just depends on how often you're going to hang your bag and how often you're going to lower it and all that stuff. I said some idiot left some carrots and potatoes. They just dumped it about 20 yards from the fire ring. There's also a pair of like boxer shorts over there or something, and I thought about burning those, but I don't. It looks like someone pissed in them, or possibly shit themselves. I'm not really sure, but if they piss themselves, and for sure if they shit themselves, I don't really want to put that in the fire. Maybe like in the morning or something, burn it before we leave. But it's just so crazy. It's like a half a mile from your car. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe they were doing some loop and they didn't park here. But why would you be hiking and backpacking in boxer shorts anyway? Please, in the comment section, if you hike in boxer shorts, let me know. But you really shouldn't. And how would you piss yourself? And they're not like little kids. It's not like a diaper or something. Somebody had some adult, apparently ostensibly an adult, had an accident back here. But whatever. A little fat wood. Is it all right?
Yeah.
And I knew as soon as I mentioned those boxers that you were going to want to see them, so go ahead and show you that.
The big logs caught way faster than I thought they would.
Yeah.
It's because they're just filled with pine resin. These are little hydration packets we take. They're made by Emergency, the same company that makes like the vitamin C packets. And we started taking these on every trip. Especially if it's cold, you tend to drink less. You're not as thirsty as much and you can get dehydrated really easily. And the worst part about being dehydrated is getting a headache, or waking up with a headache, or I've never had the pad thai. This one is, I've had this probably a dozen times or close to it, is probably one of their best. Automatic lighter wasn't working. These are Big Woolly. They're made by Woolrich, and they're the thickest wool socks that I've ever used. They're too thick, I think, to hike in. Depending on how tight your shoes fit. I mean, it's not like you couldn't do it, but they're thicker than like the darn tough mountaineering socks I have. I wear these around the house when it's really cold. This is the first time I've ever taken them backpacking. So they're doing a pretty good job out here. Just to give you an idea of how much this cord, it's kind of hard to capture this, but that gives you an idea. It just glows. It's really cool for a bear bag, especially if you have to hang it some distance from your camp and need to find it for some reason in the nighttime. These fat wood shavings are basically like gasoline. Just shave off pieces of this. Makes a little tinder pile. This is basically what I take as my fire kit. It's got stormproof matches, a lighter, a couple little tinders, and then I have a couple cotton balls soaked in Vaseline. But honestly, one piece of fat wood goes a lot farther than I thought it would. I usually don't have that big of a knife with me. I usually have this much smaller Spyderco that's kind of useless. So I'm not able to really shave the fat wood very easily with that smaller knife, but just a pile of shavings from that is all you need to get a fire. But as I said, the trick is to actually make shavings with it. If you just take a whole piece of fat wood and try and light it on fire, number one, that's wasteful. You don't need nearly that much, but it's not going to work very well. I think something's wrong with this fuel can, and it wasn't cold enough for it to be the weather, because it took a long time to boil the water last night, which makes no sense. And it wasn't windy like it is right now, but this has a built-in windscreen. It's the Pocket Rocket 2 Deluxe. I'm putting a lot more in here than I normally would, only because we're not going to bring it to a boil. We're just going to we're headed back to the car. Packed up not that early this morning. We stayed in the tent a little longer than we usually would. We didn't get out of the tent until about 7 o'clock. I wake up pretty early. I'm usually up by 6, sometimes earlier. But it didn't really get light out until about 6:30. And yeah, we just got a short hike back to the car. So, South Cumberland, campsite number 3 in the Collins West area. That's where we stayed. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I might do a gear video to show some gear that I used on the trip, even though it wasn't much of a trip. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it.